Welcome to the webinar. We're excited to have you here. Our speaker for tonight, please welcome Ev Page. Ev is excited to share the ongoing historical discoveries and exciting work that's currently being undertaken at the Grimsby Historical Society. Ev is a dedicated and knowledgeable graduate of the International Institute of Genealogical Studies, specializing in both English and Canadian programs. And tonight, Ev is joined by Carol Mazur, who has been volunteering with the Society for a long time and will, if you want to follow the Grimsby Historical Society, you can go to their website, and I'm going to put that in the chat as well at grimsbyhistoricalsociety.com, or you can find them on Facebook at Grimsby Historical Society Archives. Welcome, Ev. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. I'm really excited to hear your presentation. I've stopped into the Grimsby Historical Society a few times, and I know that you're downtown and you've got lots of exciting things going on and speakers and presentations, and I'm excited to hear you tell us everything that you know tonight.
Thank you, Amanda.
All right, I'm going to just pass the wand to you and let you take over.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Welcome to the Grimsby Historical Society, everyone. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with Grimsby, we're on the Niagara Peninsula, at halfway between Hamilton and St. Catharines. We have Lake Ontario to the north and the Niagara Escarpment to the south of us. We're also located at the entrance to wine country, which is nice. And there are at least 20 wineries within a 20-minute drive from here. So there's lots of choices. We're located at the Carnegie Building, which you can see on the screen. And we're behind the window with the screen down. We have that room and the one behind it. To the left is a rental hall, and in the basement, we have Fort, which is the foundation of resources for teens.
Good.
So our tagline is preserving and sharing Grimsby's past for the future. And our mission statement is to inspire an enduring connection to the history and the heritage of Grimsby. Yeah. There's so much history in Grimsby, with stories of the first 47 Loyalist families arriving in 1787 and building homesteads on land grants received for their service to King George III. Of these families, 43 were from New Jersey and 4 from Pennsylvania. This included the Nellis, Pettit, Nixon, Lewis, Beamer families, just to name a few. While the settlers had to quickly build mills and homesteads and businesses first, they also knew the importance of education. And very soon a log cabin was built by where St. Andrew's Church is today. It was used as a church, a school, and a meeting house for the community. Nellis Manor, which you can see on your screen, is a homestead built in 1798 by the Nellis family, and now operates as Nellis Manor Museum and is open to the public. If you enjoy visiting historic homes, put Nellis Manor on your list. In 1912, descendants of some of the early families, Willard Wright, Adam Rutherford, Lorne Macmillan, Jean Douglas Powell, and George Lewis, got together to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the War of 1812 and collect early artifacts and stories for future generations to enjoy. There are no records of meetings following the outbreak of World War I in 1914, when Grimsby men signed up in droves to go fight for Canada and the freedom of their original homelands. That same enthusiasm happened again in 1939. In 1949, the Grimsby Historical Society was born again, with Janet Powell, Norma Rogers, and others. The first thing they worked on was the Annals of the 40. This was Janet Powell's baby, and she wrote one book a year over a period of 10 years, covering the years from 1783 to 1876. Following her death in 1966, Jean Powell, no relation to Janet, wrote a story about Janet's life and her contribution to preserving the history of the town. That book is called The Life and Work of Janet Powell. It was also realized a few years later that our history after 1876 hadn't been captured. So a new book was created to cover the years from 1876 to 1976. That book would be entitled Once Upon a Little Town. Since then, Dorothy Turcott has written a few books about Grimsby and some of its citizens. All have been well received by families who still live here and those who've moved away but still have an interest in the town. I'm sure that when you're researching people in your own town and your own historical society, you've run across someone who clearly made a huge difference to your community 50 years or more ago, and you wish you could have known them. Ada Bromley is that person for me. I understand she was a tiny lady with a huge heart and endless energy. She was involved in the Historical Society, serving on the board, and one of the driving forces in the creation of the book, Once Upon a Little Town. The foreword was written by Phil Deckman, commented on Ada, stating, "It may never have got off the ground without her motivation and determination." He also said, "We hope it will be well received. It will remain forever as a tribute to Ada Bromley and her pride in Grimsby." However, it wasn't just Ada that created that book. There were 49 writers and 6 typists, plus Phil Deckman, who was the editor-in-chief of the Grimsby Independent. In her role as president of the IODE during World War II, Ada's record keeping was immaculate, even though it was all handwritten in her little black book. And I'll tell you more about that a little later on. Another thing this initial group got involved in was identifying historic sites worthy of note. They brought them to the attention of the provincial government, and who placed plaques marking the sites. One of these plaques was placed on a cairn at the Waterworks Park, now known as 40 Mile Creek Park. It commemorates the engagement on the 40, which took place June 8, 1813, when American forces were retreating from the Battle of Stony Creek. The plaque reads, "Here at the 40 Mile Creek, on the 8th of June, 1830, American forces retreating from the Battle of Stony Creek were bombarded by the British flotilla under James Lucas Yow. Indians and groups of the 4th and 5th, the regiments of Lincoln militia, joined in the attack and created such confusion in the enemy ranks that they abandoned this position and retreated to Fort George, which is in Niagara-on-the-Lake. Unfortunately, the cairn needs some attention now, and the board has had discussions with the Willowbank School of Restoration in Niagara-on-the-Lake to have it repaired." Also, at the request of the Historical Society, the old town bell was brought out of storage and restored to a place of distinction on a stone monument in Municipal Park, where it still sits today. The plaque states, "This bell was purchased by the village council for the fire department in 1883 and placed on John Grout's foundry, which is the corner of Main and Oak Streets, which would have been right downtown. For 75 years, it summoned firemen, signified working hours, and proclaimed curfews. It peeled to indicate celebrations, the ending of wars, and to honor championship hockey teams. We're very proud of our Peach Kings. It tolled out the old year and rang in the new. The bell was restored in 1966 by Town Council and the Grimsby Historical Society to commemorate Canada's centennial year in 1967, and to honor the memory of pioneers who built the community. The bell will ring in centennial year and announce the special occasions in the future. The bell continues to ring in each new year. Of course, we have a board of directors, and their role is to manage and supervise the management of the activities of the organization. They support the Supporting the volunteer activities is considered the norm for board members. They ensure the project goals align with the overall goals of the GHS, and that all committees and teams are preserving and sharing Grimsby's past for the future. Typically, at least one board member participates on each team. They also plan and participate in the annual general meeting and are responsible for managing compliance, accountability, and financial governance, and ensure we comply with the ONCA governance. The board also plans an annual outing. Typically, an annual outing is planned on an annual basis for members and volunteers. Tours of the Brown Homestead, the Salem Chapel, both in St. Catharines, Ruthven Estate in Cayuga, and the Hamilton Museum for Steam and Technology have been enjoyed. We've also taken advantage of the beautiful Niagara wineries and distilleries and have had a few lunch outings. GHS key priorities are to recruit and care for our volunteers, to collect, preserve, and share documents, to research requests, to determine a theme, create, print, and sell annual calendars, write, publish other items of interest like family or house history, assist with genealogical research, accept donations, and collaborate with other organizations. And the three other organizations that we continually collaborate with is Stony Creek, Lincoln, and West Lincoln. They all abut Grimsby, and a lot of the families had lands in multiple areas. We currently have 10 archive volunteers who participate in monthly meetings to keep everyone up to date, to share progress of organizational and individual work and projects. We also ask for input and ideas from the team. As you can imagine, some volunteers help out on more than one team. The first thing we do is establish our hours of business. Our summer hours from May 24th to the end of October on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. We have 4 volunteers on that shift. The winter hours are from November 1st to May 24th, Monday and Friday, 9 to 1 p.m. So we have 4 volunteers on Monday, 3 on Wednesday, and 3 on Friday. In the winter, we work at the best we can. But our website is always open. GrimsbyHistoricalSociety.com is open 24/7. Fulfill research requests. We're very happy to research for members, the local community, and people anywhere in the world. We've researched for people in Florida, New York, and England, amongst other locations. For those of us interested in genealogy, this is a very enjoyable component of our work. Many people want to see photos of the family home as it was before modern renovations. Was it smaller or larger? What did the original build look like? Sometimes we can provide quite a bit of information, which people are grateful for. People are also interested in the name of their street, who it was named after, and why. We have a street book that gives this information. The book is dated 2000, so there are a few new subdivisions that are not included. However, it is surprising how many people are interested in street names. Businesses. People are curious about the businesses where their ancestors worked, such as the basket factories, the sawmills, the farming, shopkeeping, fishing, hotels, and restaurants. They're also interested in the schools and the churches that their ancestors attended. The annual calendar. That is this year's calendar, and it honors Grimsby Park. Another small team creates the theme for the annual calendar, and they gather photos and information and produce the calendar to be ready for sale by mid-September. Those calendars are ready for sale now, and they're $10 each. And as you can see, it talks about Grimsby Park, and you'll hear more about that a little later on. Community research. First, we have weekly article and photo pasted on Facebook and Instagram that may be of interest to the community. We appreciate the feedback we receive. Often we receive added information to research and add to our records. Secondly, you're probably aware of the Ontario Heritage Trust. It invites Ontarians to celebrate heritage in all forms: cultural, natural, architectural, and archaeological. Over the last few years, we've shared details and photos of heritage designated homes on social media. The week of February the 20th, 2023, we shared a photo and a story about a local designated house each day, starting with the one about Moore's Cottage and its history, and that is Moore's Cottage there. Archive volunteers also participate in Archives Awareness Week. Typically, that's the first week of April. We select a theme, and our volunteers meet to determine how best we can deliver on that theme. In 2023, the theme was Stepping into Your Community. So we created stories of local buildings that demonstrated adaptive reuse. For instance, the Wolverton Church that was built in 1881 is now used as a community meeting place and is also home to Simply Moto, a retail store. In 2024, Archives Awareness theme was Access Your Archives, and we introduced the GHS Hub, showcasing the postcard collection online. You can, if you want to go to catalog it, the address is at the top. It's also on our website. And you can see some designated properties there and all the photographs that. As a group, we determine a theme to host an open house for members. We provide refreshments, interesting themes for our collection, such as maps, records, research, and projects. It amazes me how many people are so interested in maps, but I'm sure that's everywhere. Usually everyone pitches in to help at these events. We participate in Home Children Day on September 28th. While we know about 70 British home children came to Grimsby, many left for Hamilton and other cities once their term as a servant or farm worker was completed. Others joined the armed forces to serve in World War I or World War II, many hoping to get back to the UK and find their families. Others married locals and stayed in Grimsby. On September 28th, we remember them by laying sunflowers on their graves. We have 70 graves to date. We visit 3 cemeteries, and we leave 3 sunflowers on the cenotaph for those who didn't return. Again, several volunteers help out with that activity. We participate in a variety of projects. It may be reorganizing map draws, which Carol and I have spent the last few months doing. A few years ago, we researched the home children who came to Grimsby as servants. A lot of work has been done and continues to be done in researching old homes. Also, a small team is responsible for reviewing donations of material to ensure the quality and content fits with our key priority, which is to collect, preserve, and share documents and photographs of a local historical interest with the community. So that's what the volunteers do. Now I'm going to move on to away from the archive teams, the archive volunteers, to the other committees. And these committees include board members, society members, and of course, a few archive members too. The speaker series are monthly in-person meetings. They run from September to May. These events are open to members and the general public. We have currently speakers booked until December 2025. Meetings are held at the Grimsby Livingston Activity Centre, also known as the Seniors Centre. We have a group of members who volunteer to book the speakers, the room, arrange for refreshments for the presentation. They introduce the speaker, operate the PowerPoint program if required, and of course thank them at the end of the session. This group also plans a Christmas party for members. Our next presentation you might be interested in if you're local is Tim Speed. He's from the Canadian Warplane Heritage Museum, and his topic is the Lorenz and the Enigma, the 2 uncrackable World War II German coding machines, and how they worked, and how did Bletchley Park cryptanalysts solve their secret and develop intelligent machines to read those codes. I think that's going to be a very interesting presentation. And if you want to see more about it, check our website. It's all on there. We have a photo committee, and they meet every 2 weeks. This group is made up of members and volunteers who have lived in Grimsby all or most of their lives. Quite often we receive photos of a group of people at a picnic or historical society gathering, and there are no names. Thankfully, this group can generally identify some or most of the people in the group. Maybe they recognize the background where the photo was taken. If there are still people in the photo they can't identify, we might post it on Facebook and Instagram and ask our followers for help. Invariably, some will come back with a name. We have a publications committee, and their role is to create and distribute a quarterly newsletter, publish new books, brochures, and bookmarks. They also sell books, some of the ones written by Dorothy Turcott. The new edition of Greetings from Grimsby Park has been created and will be ready in a few months, for which we are already have several orders. This book, focusing on the Methodist camp and later Grimsby Park, has been a great seller in the past. Getting back to the calendar for a second, this year we featured Grimsby Park, and it complements the new edition of the book. And here is the book, Greetings from Grimsby Park. I'll tell you a little bit about that. It's hard to imagine when one goes to Grimsby Park today how it looked 150 years ago. It all began in 1846 when landowner John Boslaw offered the use of a grove along the shore of Lake Ontario for a giant Methodist temperance meeting where 2,000 people attended. This event continued for 15 years. In 1874, the Ontario Methodist Campground Company was formed, and John Boslaw then donated 12.5 acres as a permanent site for the park. This included major improvements, such as cottages and a pier and steamers, bringing visitors from Hamilton, Port Dalhousie, and Toronto. Later, a hotel, Lakeview House, was built, and the Grand Trunk Railway added a long covered platform and a spur line from the main rail line for easy access. This was to provide better handling of the crowds. Up to 16,000 people were arriving daily at the park. The campground was renamed Grimsby Park. In 1888, a massive temple was built. It was modeled after the Mormon Tabernacle in Utah. It measured 37 meters in diameter and was 30 meters high. The temple was built out of wood, became unsafe, was taken down in the 1920s. By 1910, financial troubles plagued the park and it went bankrupt. It was bought by H. Wiley of Cleveland, and the park's image was changed. No more rules or curfews, and a midway was built, including a roller coaster, carousels, and a dance pavilion. By 1927, the park has settled down to become a quiet residential area known as Grimsby Beach. They formed the Cottages Association and took over the management of the area. In the 40s, cottages began to stay year-round and became full-time residents of Grimsby. Today, many of the original cottages exist, and many are painted in bright colors, and they're known as the Painted Ladies. So it's become a bit of a tourist attraction all over again. In 1985, Dorothy Turcott researched and authored the story Grimsby Park, while Jean Jarvis researched and created a picture collection. Needless to say, this book will sell quickly. GHS has recently had it reprinted, as I mentioned, and it will celebrate the 40th anniversary. So that house there, that cottage there, was one of the originals, and this is what they look like today. And those are just two. There are bright green ones, bright red ones, all colors you can imagine. To conclude my presentation, I would like to tell you another story about Ada Bromley. From her World War II records for the IOD, where she was the president, I learned so much, particularly since military records are not released yet by the government. Ada's records and notes in a little black book are indispensable. When the RAF base in Mount Hope wanted to create a home hospitality program where pilots in training could spend a 48-hour pass with a family, Ada was there and got word out in Grimsby to sign up families to help with the program. Families would sign up to host an RAF man, likely from the UK, here for training. The men would be met at the bus station and taken to the host home. Not only did she arrange for the visit, but she also wrote to the young man's family in the UK to let them know he was enjoying home-cooked meal or visiting Niagara Falls or just helping out on the farm. Ada's records tell this wonderful story. In fact, on the right-hand page of the book in front of you there, it refers to a young man who didn't arrive as planned, and Ada worried he may have been led astray when he arrived in the city. I think it's funny. The soldiers would take, or the airmen would take the bus from Mount Hope into Hamilton, change in Hamilton to get a bus to come to Grimsby. I guess he didn't get the bus to Grimsby. It was also interesting to note that some families who had single daughters asked for single airmen. And in fact, we did have one war groom. As with other communities and organizations as the Red Cross, the IOD, and others were very committed to sending parcels to troops overseas. According to our newspapers, soldiers wrote letters of thanks to the IOD and the other groups, thanking them for the cigarettes, socks, newspapers, and the other treats. That concludes my presentation. I hope you have enjoyed it. Learned a little bit about Grimsby, hopefully. And if you've got any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. Thank you.
That was wonderful, Ev. So fascinating to hear about the airmen coming in. And you normally think of it the other way around, somebody going out to war and bringing back a war bride. But I could see, I know some people who would have asked for their single daughters to be matched up with a single airman.
Yeah, they definitely did.
I had a few kind of comments and questions while you were speaking, so I'm just going to tell you what they are now. Donna Graham Addis just commented that she's researching the Wilcox, Buckner, and Bogner names to obtain UAL certificates for two of her ancestors, and I gather that they're from the Grimsby area. Karen wants to know what types of research questions that you're able to respond to.
Ask me, and if I can, I will.
And Sherry asked about historical newspapers for Grimsby and the time periods that they might be available for. I was able, because I have actually had to research some family in Grimsby, to pull up the Grimsby Library's page and give her the microfilms that they have there, as well as point her towards the news, the online news pages there. Do you have other pages that aren't available in the library, or is that?
I believe all our pages went to the library. Did they not, Carol?
We have some older issues of Independent, but we still have the paper copies, and also
Okay.
the museum has some paper copies as well.
Okay.
But they would probably be on the internet anyway.
Yeah. Most of the times we go to ourontario.ca.
Yes.
That's where we typically go. We do have some copies, but Carol's saying that most of them now are at the museum or at the library in the archives.
Independence.
Yeah, we have special editions of some of the older. I know I've got information from World War II off some of the ones that we've got in the office. So if somebody's looking for some, to see if we've got one in particular, best to give us the date or the topic, and we'll see what we can find.
There you go. And that was all the questions that I've seen so far. If anybody else has a question, please feel free to type it into the chat, and we can ask Ev if she has an answer for us. I know there was a talk on Grimsby Beach a year ago, right? Through the Historical Society, and I missed it. But I am a huge fan of the Painted Ladies. I'm from Beamsville, so I ride my bike through there quite often and just enjoy them. But I hadn't understood the history in the past with Grimsby Park. That was fascinating.
Thank you. It is fascinating. And when you see those houses now, how people have brightened them all up.
And they take really good care of them too.
And they do. They're very proud of them. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It has become a tourist attraction all over again.
It really has, absolutely. I think I've seen it in the Toronto paper, probably not recently, but I have seen it. There are definitely people coming out here just to see them.
Oh, yeah.
Karen has asked, where can I find the names of the 47 founding families?
Some of those families are on our website. If you look, there's a list.
Yes, on the website. Check out the website. If not, give us a call and we'll help you with that.
There you go. Perfect. And I'm not seeing any more questions, but I have put the link up. Oh, there we go. Do you have information on the police department? Carol Patton is asking. Her great-grandfather was a member of the Grimsby force.
We do have some information, definitely, on the Grimsby Police Department, yes. I couldn't tell you offhand what that is, but we definitely do have a file on that.
We might have information on him as a person,
Yes,
but also our files, a lot of our newspaper clippings are not that, don't go back historically, so you'd have to look in the Grimsby Independent old issues for some of the older stuff.
okay. So we may have something on him as an individual. But
Yeah. That's a good idea, that, and you could look on the newspaper, our Ontario
yeah,
Grimsby, that I posted above, but I will put
the Independent, yeah. It's
there.
a great site. We use it all the time.
Yeah, it's quite easy to use. As I said, I've used it to search for my own ancestors, so
Yeah.
it's definitely helpful. And I love how we had newspapers.com in and have a talk with us earlier this year. And I just find that the records themselves, the census records, are interesting, but you get so much meat on the story when you find an article about your ancestor in the
Oh,
news.
for sure.
Absolutely. And
Especially if you look for a wedding. You can
yes,
see everybody that was there, what they wore, what color the suits were, what color the dresses were.
yeah, I had tracked what I thought was my family from Ireland to the US. And it wasn't until I found a wedding announcement that actually linked them and confirmed that they were actually my family, that I was 100% certain that I got the right families.
What were
Well,
the names of that somebody was researching their family in Grimsby?
it was
Right.
Wilcox and
Will,
Buckner, or Bugner, Bougner, Boughner. And she was looking to get her UEL certificates.
okay, if she wants to get in touch with her, we'll check that out when we go back in the office.
And
Yeah.
that was, who was that? I did write it down. It was Donna.
Donna? Okay.
So contact GHS and they can hopefully help you out with some of your research.
Yeah, we'd be happy to do that.
Hmm. Oh, and Donna says, thank you very much. She'll be in touch.
Okay.
All right, I'm not seeing any more questions, so I'm just going to do some final note keeping. Aside from thanking you very much, Ev, for joining us tonight. It's always nice when we can have someone local come in and speak about the different parts of history that they're doing and researching, and the archives that you have available that we can send our own people to if they're looking for something. So this has been very helpful, I'm sure, and we've got a couple of our volunteers on the talk as well, so that they can write down their own little notes in case they need some help at some point.
We're always pleased to help, because when we need help from another area, we get it. That's the whole idea about services like ours, isn't it? That we help each other, people finding their families or whatever they're doing. Anyway, it's good to keep in touch. That's for sure.
Sorry about that. My daughter's trying to get in touch with me and I can't turn the ringer off for her. Anyway, again, thank you for joining us tonight. We really appreciate you joining us. I'm just going to touch on a few final things. If you haven't registered next month, we have Eric Story, who is a postdoctoral researcher at Brock University, and he's going to be talking to us in a Remembrance Day talk about how the medical war unfolded from 1914 to 1918, specifically through one of the gravest diseases of the 20th century, tuberculosis. It was called the Great White Plague and instilled intense fears of not only death, but long-term chronic illness. I found Eric because I had one of my own ancestors who was affected by that plague and experienced long-term issues as a result. And I'm really looking forward to the talk, and I hope that you guys will join us as well. It's membership season. We appreciate your support all the time. Please, if you have been a member, we appreciate it. jump in and continue your membership. If you're not a member, your membership dollars, if you join us, help us to put on talks like this with Ev and ensure that we can preserve our history and our Niagara heritage. And excuse me, speaking of our Niagara heritage, check out our new website for Niagara Heritage events. It's heritageniagara.ca. The site has information on the many heritage properties throughout Niagara, as well as upcoming webinars and in-person events that you can attend. So I'm just going to close by saying again, thank you, Ev, for joining us. And I wish everybody a wonderful evening. And we'll see you next month.